Hello, dear learners. Welcome back to our channel, where learning English becomes a real adventure. Today, we begin the incredible life story of one of the greatest leaders in human history, Nelson Mandela. This is not only a story, it is a journey of hope, courage, and determination. By listening to it, you will improve your English vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening skills. But more importantly, you will learn the value of never giving up, no matter how difficult life becomes. So, let's begin the story of the man who changed the world, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in a quiet village called Mvizo, in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. His birth name was Ralilela Mandela, which in the Xhosa language means pulling the branch of a tree. Some also say it means troublemaker, a name that later matched his brave fight against injustice. He was born into the Thembu royal family, a tribe known for its strong traditions and proud history. His father, Gadla Henry Mfakaniiswa, was a respected chief and advisor to the king. His mother, Nakafai Nosekini, was a kind and devoted Christian. She taught young Nelson the importance of kindness, humility, and faith. Mandela's childhood was simple but full of joy. He lived in a small hut made of mud and straw, surrounded by open fields and rolling hills. There was no electricity or running water, but he felt happy and free. As a boy, Mandela loved to run barefoot through the fields, herd cattle, and swim in clear streams. In the evenings, he sat with his friends and listened to the village elders tell stories about brave warriors and great leaders. These stories planted the first seeds of inspiration in his young heart. One day, his father told him something that would stay with him forever. A real leader is not someone who wants power, but someone who serves his people. When Mandela was 9 years old, tragedy struck. His father became ill and passed away. It was a painful moment for the young boy, but it also became a turning point in his life. After his father's death, his mother took him to live with Chief Janjantaba Dalindibo, a powerful royal leader of the Thembu people. The chief welcomed Nelson as if he were his own son. For the first time, Mandela saw a life beyond his small village. He lived in the chief's palace, where he watched meetings and learned about leadership, justice, and responsibility. At the age of 7, Mandela began attending a local Methodist school. His teacher, Miss Mdingane, gave him a new name, Nelson, following the English custom for African students. Although he did not understand why he needed a new name, he accepted it and focused on his studies. He quickly became a curious and dedicated student. He enjoyed English literature, geography, and history, especially stories about African heroes who resisted colonial rule. Mandela later said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." This belief guided him throughout his life, pushing him to study harder and dream bigger. As Mandela grew older, he began to notice the world around him more clearly. He saw that life was very unfair for black South Africans. The country was ruled by a system called apartheid, which separated people by race. Black people could not vote, own land, or live in the same areas as white people. They had to work hard for very low pay, while others lived in comfort. At the age of 16, Mandela joined a traditional Xhosa ceremony where boys were declared men. During the ceremony, the elders spoke about honor and responsibility, but they also expressed their sadness about how their people were treated under apartheid. That day, Mandela felt a deep sense of duty to help his people and fight for justice. When he turned 19, Chief Janjantaba arranged a marriage for him. But Mandela had other dreams. He wanted to study more and choose his own path in life. So he made a brave decision. He ran away to the busy city of Johannesburg. When Mandela arrived there, he saw a completely different world. The city was full of life, but also full of struggles. Black people worked long hours for little money and lived in crowded, poor areas called townships. White people, on the other hand, enjoyed power and luxury. Mandela worked as a night watchman at a gold mine while trying to continue his studies. He lived in a small, crowded room and sometimes went hungry, but he never gave up. He believed education would open doors to a better future. Later, he joined the University of Witwatersrand, where he studied law. He was one of the few black students there and often faced discrimination. Still, he remained strong and determined. During this time, Mandela joined the African National Congress, ANC, a group fighting for the rights of black South Africans. He attended secret meetings, listened to passionate speeches, and shared his own ideas for a fairer society. Mandela dreamed of a South Africa where everyone, no matter their race, could live together in peace and equality. He imagined a land where children could play freely, families could build their lives safely, and justice ruled for all. This dream became the driving force of his life. However, the road ahead was full of obstacles, sacrifices, and pain. When he first arrived in Johannesburg, Mandela was young and full of hope. He rented a small room in Alexandra, one of the poorest townships, and began working as a clerk at a law firm. The job was hard but valuable. It taught him how the law could be used not to protect but to oppress. Every evening he studied by candlelight, determined to finish his law degree. His hunger for knowledge was endless. He once said, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have made missteps along the way, but after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb." Mandela and other young activists believed that the ANC needed a new spirit. So they created the ANC Youth League, which encouraged young people to join the struggle. Mandela's speeches were full of passion and power. He spoke of justice, equality, and courage. People admired his strength and his clear vision of a better future. One of his most famous lines was, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Those words inspired thousands to keep fighting for freedom. While working with the ANC, Mandela met a kind and intelligent nurse named Evelyn Mays. She shared his dream of a free and fair South Africa. They married in 1944 and began a family. Mandela loved his wife and children deeply, but his growing involvement in the movement often kept him away from home. Balancing family and leadership was not easy. He felt torn between his duty as a father and his duty to his people. Yet, he always believed that living without purpose was worse than facing hardship. He once said, "There is no passion to be found in settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living." In 1948, the government made apartheid even stricter. New laws decided where black people could live, work, and even who they could marry. Mandela and his friends in the ANC knew they had to act. They organized peaceful protests, marches, and strikes, following the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi, who had taught the power of nonviolence. Thousands of people joined, ready to risk their jobs, their homes, and even their lives. But the government answered with violence. Protesters were beaten, arrested, and sometimes killed. Mandela himself was arrested several times, but he refused to be silent. He said, "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is inspiring others to move beyond it." Despite all the danger, Mandela achieved one of his biggest goals. In 1952, he became a lawyer, one of the few black lawyers in the country. Together with his friend Oliver Tambo, he opened the first black law firm in South Africa, Mandela and Tambo Attorneys. The firm helped poor black South Africans who were victims of injustice and could not afford legal help. Mandela spent his days defending people in court and his nights planning the next steps for freedom. His work made him well known and watched closely by the government. Then, in 1960, tragedy struck again. During a peaceful protest in the town of Sharpeville, police opened fire on the crowd. They killed 69 people and injured hundreds. The Sharpeville massacre shocked the world. After that, the government banned the ANC and began arresting its leaders. Mandela realized that peaceful protest alone might no longer be enough. He and other leaders went underground and formed a secret armed group called Umkhonto we Sizwe, which means Spear of the Nation. Their goal was not to harm people, but to damage buildings and systems that supported apartheid. Mandela became a wanted man. He traveled across South Africa in disguise, organizing protests and recruiting new members. He even left the country to gain support from other nations. People began to call him the Black Pimpernel, because he was always one step ahead of the police. But his life was full of danger. He could not see his family, and he knew each day could be his last as a free man. In 1962, Mandela was finally captured and charged with sabotage, treason, and trying to overthrow the government. During his trial, he spoke with great courage. He said, "I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society where all people live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal I hope to live for and achieve. But if need be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The court sentenced him to life imprisonment. Nelson Mandela was sent to Robben Island, a cold, harsh prison off the coast of Cape Town. Life on Robben Island was extremely hard. Mandela was forced to do heavy labor every day in a limestone quarry under the hot sun. His cell was very small, with no bed, only a thin mat on the floor. He had few clothes and poor food. He was allowed to receive only one visitor and one letter every 6 months. The guards treated prisoners cruelly, trying to break their spirit. But Mandela refused to give up. He used his time in prison to study, reflect, and teach others. He even learned the Afrikaans language to better understand his enemies. He taught younger prisoners about leadership and the importance of staying hopeful. He once said, "I am fundamentally an optimist. Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head toward the sun and one's feet moving forward." Over the years, Mandela became a symbol of hope for millions of people both in South Africa and around the world. Protests against apartheid grew stronger. International leaders and organizations demanded his release, but the South African government refused. For many, Mandela's imprisonment was supposed to end the movement. Instead, it became the spark that united people across the world. Songs were written about him, posters carried his name, and the words "Free Nelson Mandela" became a cry for justice. Mandela spent 27 years in prison, most of them on Robben Island. Every day was a test of patience, courage, and faith. The guards tried to humiliate him, but he stayed calm and dignified. He said, "Courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." During those long years, Mandela became more than a prisoner. He became a symbol of freedom. People saw in him the strength of the human spirit. He taught that real power comes not from violence or anger, but from patience and understanding. Outside the prison, South Africa was changing. The government was under pressure as protests, strikes, and international sanctions increased. Countries around the world began to boycott South Africa, refusing to trade or cooperate. Famous artists like Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley dedicated songs to him, spreading his message of peace and equality. Even from behind bars, Mandela's leadership could be felt. He managed to send secret messages to other ANC leaders. He even began secret talks with the apartheid government to find a peaceful solution. Mandela knew that to truly win, South Africa needed peace, not revenge. He believed that freedom without forgiveness would only create new hatred. Then, on February 11, 1990, the world watched a historic moment. After 27 years, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison. He was 71 years old, his hair gray, but his spirit strong. In his first speech, he said, "I stand before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people. The time for healing has come. The time to build is upon us." The streets of South Africa exploded with celebration. People danced, cried, and cheered. Mandela's release was not just his freedom. It was a sign that a new era had begun. After his release, Mandela faced one of the hardest questions of his life. How could South Africa heal after so much pain and division? Many people wanted revenge, but Mandela chose a different path. He believed that forgiveness was stronger than hate. He met with the very people who had once oppressed him and worked with them to build a new nation. He said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies." Mandela became the leader of the African National Congress once again. His goal was simple but powerful: to create a South Africa where everyone, no matter their color, could live with equal rights. In 1994, history was made. For the first time, all South Africans, black, white, Indian, and colored, could vote freely. People waited in long lines for hours, many crying as they cast their first votes. On April 27, 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president of South Africa. It was a moment of pure joy and hope. World leaders came to witness his inauguration. In his speech, Mandela said, "Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will experience the oppression of one by another." South Africa finally had a new beginning, and Mandela was at the heart of it. As president, he worked to unite the country, not divide it. He knew that the wounds of the past were deep, and healing would take time. He focused on bringing people together through understanding and respect. One of his most famous acts as president was supporting South Africa's rugby team, the Springboks, during the 1995 Rugby World Cup. At that time, rugby was seen as a sport only for white people. But Mandela surprised everyone by wearing the Springbok jersey and standing with the team. When South Africa won the championship, the country celebrated together, black and white, side by side. This powerful act of unity was later shown in the movie Invictus. The title came from a poem Mandela loved, which ends with the lines, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Mandela served only one term as president. In 1999, he stepped down from power, showing that true leaders know when to let go. He didn't seek power for himself. He wanted to set an example for future generations. After leaving office, Mandela continued to work for peace, education, and the fight against poverty and HIV/AIDS. He traveled the world, met with global leaders, and inspired millions of young people. Everywhere he went, he carried a message of forgiveness and hope. He reminded the world that courage does not mean fighting others. It means believing in peace when everyone else believes in hate. Mandela's kindness, wisdom, and strength made him a symbol not only for South Africa but for the entire world. As the years went by, Nelson Mandela became a beloved figure around the globe. People called him Madiba, a respectful name from his clan that showed love and honor. He smiled often, spoke calmly, and treated everyone with respect, whether they were presidents or children. He believed deeply in education. He often said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." Mandela wanted every child, especially those from poor families, to have the chance to learn and build a better future. He also fought strongly against HIV/AIDS, which was spreading quickly in South Africa. Even when he lost his own son to the disease, Mandela used his grief to raise awareness and help others. He encouraged people not to hide or feel ashamed but to seek treatment and support. Although he was no longer president, Mandela continued to guide his country through his example. He showed that leadership is not about control, it is about service. He spent his time visiting schools, hospitals, and villages, always listening to people's stories and offering them hope. In his later years, Mandela's health began to weaken, but his spirit stayed strong. He continued to speak about peace, love, and unity until the very end. He believed that forgiveness could heal not just nations but also individual hearts. On December 5, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. The world mourned deeply. Millions of people, from presidents and famous leaders to ordinary citizens, gathered to honor his memory. They celebrated not only his achievements but the light he had brought into the world. At his memorial, people sang, danced, and shared stories about his kindness. They didn't just cry, they celebrated the hope he had given to humanity. Mandela's legacy lives on in every corner of the world. He taught us that no matter how dark the road may seem, hope and courage can lead us forward. He showed that greatness is not something you are born with. It is something you create through hard work and faith. Mandela's story reminds us that we must never give up, even when life feels impossible. He proved that forgiveness is stronger than hate, and one person can make a real difference. His life was a lesson in patience, strength, and determination. He spent 27 years in prison for a dream he never abandoned. And when he finally walked free, he chose peace instead of revenge. Mandela showed the world that in our darkest moments, we can still choose the light of hope, love, and understanding. Nelson Mandela's journey was long and full of challenges. There were many times when he could have lost hope or given up. He faced pain, loss, and injustice, But he never stopped believing that change was possible. He understood that real change does not happen overnight. It comes step by step, through small actions done with courage and consistency. He showed the world that one person's determination can inspire millions. Mandela once said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." These words capture the heart of his spirit. He believed that every mistake was a lesson, not a failure. If we fall, we can stand again. If we fail, we can try once more, stronger than before. His story teaches us that we do not need to be perfect to make a difference. We just need to keep trying, even when things seem impossible. Whether in the streets of South Africa or in the cold walls of his prison cell, Mandela never lost sight of his dream: a free and equal world. He fought not just for himself, but for the future of his children, his grandchildren, and for generations to come. He wanted them to live in a world where people are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the strength of their hearts. Mandela believed that every person has the power to be a leader in their own way. You don't have to be famous or powerful to make change. Every kind word, every act of honesty, every small moment of courage, all of these can change someone's life. He showed that leadership begins with kindness. When we listen, when we forgive, when we stand up for what's right, we become stronger together. That is how true freedom begins, not just in nations, but in our hearts. Mandela's life continues to remind us that even when the world feels unfair, there is always something we can do. We can speak up for others. We can choose peace instead of anger. We can help someone in need. Every time we choose love over hate, we keep Mandela's dream alive. His example gives us the courage to face our own struggles with hope. He believed that even the smallest act of good can make the world a better place. His message was simple, but powerful. Never give up, never lose hope, and never stop believing in humanity. Nelson Mandela's story is more than history. It is a lesson for every one of us. It reminds us that no matter where we come from or what difficulties we face, we all have the power to rise above them. He showed that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep going despite it. Even after decades in prison, he came out smiling, ready to forgive and rebuild. He proved that peace is stronger than hate, and unity is stronger than division. When you feel tired or hopeless, remember Mandela. Think of how he spent 27 years behind bars and still believed in the future. Think of how he chose forgiveness instead of anger, love instead of revenge. He didn't let pain control his heart. He transformed it into strength. Mandela taught that greatness lives in simple actions, in helping a stranger, in standing up for what is right, in never losing faith when life is hard. He showed us that the most powerful change begins within us, in our hearts, in our thoughts, and in our daily choices. He once said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." These words still echo across the world, giving hope to all who struggle. So, when life feels unfair, when your dreams seem far away, remember Nelson Mandela. Remember that one man, born in a small village, changed the course of a nation and inspired the entire world. You too have that power inside you. You can face your fears, overcome challenges, and become a light for others. Like Mandela, you can turn pain into purpose and struggle into strength. His story is not just about South Africa. It is about the power of the human spirit. It is about never losing hope, even when the night feels longest. Because every sunrise begins in darkness, and every victory begins with faith. Nelson Mandela's legacy lives on in our hearts, reminding us that the world can change if we believe, forgive, and keep moving forward. Thank you for listening to this journey. If his story has inspired you, share it with others. Together, we can keep his message alive. A message of hope, unity, and freedom for all.